panel discussion of the day, that is Virtual Verve, Supporting Engagement and Connection in Remote Work Settings. Please join me in welcoming the moderator, Arun Kumar Das, Global Head Learning and Customer Experience, Travel, Sutherland. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Arun? Arun has over 20 years of experience in talent identification, development, and management. He specializes in managing change and culture diversity in a wide canvas of industry, especially in the context of mergers and acquisition. His expertise lies in aligning people capabilities to enable business objectives. Arun has created strong synergies between performance management and employee development, ensuring that the business has competent internal talent pool to work in the challenging business scenarios. He does that by creating assessment systems and strong talent management tools to deliver results in a highly charged atmosphere. A strong advocate of the strength-based leadership, he has institutional a number of interventions whereby the talent management philosophy focuses on people synergies, bringing out the best on the platform. Further, I would like to introduce our following panelists. Sachith Rajagopal, India Head Technology Business, Exotel. Kamlesh Kudav, Associate Vice President Operations, Training and Quality, Epicenter Technologies Private Limited. Munish Bakshi, SVP Process Excellence and Business Transformation, Teleperformance. Venkatesh Devarajan, Senior Director of Delivery at Capgemi. Mahendra, Bindra, VP Customer Experience, Unity Small Finance Bank. Sudeep Roy, Sales Director, India, EPOS. Can we have a big round of applause for moderator and all our panelists? Over to you, Mr. Arun.
Thank you so much. The lights are really glary.
So that we don't sleep.
It should be on the other way, right? So that the audience doesn't sleep. So, good afternoon and thank you so much. I think Divya read out my LinkedIn introduction. I hope somebody gets me a job with that. Doesn't work. So, good evening. It's almost about 30 minutes late that we are starting off. I hope the impact of such a fantastic lunch has died down on you and you guys are all awake. And you're hoping to see you all awake and engaged in the conversation that we have. We've got about 50 minutes with a fantastic panel that I have the... All right, so that's about 37 minutes. For the fantastic panel that I have to moderate, Divya is telling me, hold on, it's okay, we've got more time. Thank you so much for that. We've got a very interesting topic, right? And 2020 is when the virtual world really started for our industry. Before that, I remember having a conversation, and Tarang, my colleague, is here from WNS that I worked with before. I always had this conversation saying that why can't we have people work from home? And that was a taboo conversation. So while the conversations internally was great, but what happened really is when that went into the boardroom, it kind of died down. In 2020, Feb, I remember I had come back from a visit, from a client visit, and I was supposed to take the flight out in about 3 days' time. That's when the Philippines office shut down first, and then the India centers got impacted. In about 24 hours' time, the whole world within the organization that I used to work for went virtual. And we trained about 1,500 people over the next 4 days just to engage them on relevant topics, mind you the word relevant topics that we created overnight and we converted for a period of time to make it happen. Now today, cut to in 2024, almost end of the year. So happy Thanksgiving. Yesterday we celebrated Thanksgiving. I hope somebody got some turkeys. But the world has changed today, right? We are still working with some kind of an hybrid world. And the topic that I've got is virtual Verve. We're supporting engagement and connection in remote work settings. So the word verve connects with the word energy. Now, the whole discussion that you're going to experience from now is about how do we create that energy to make sure that the people who are virtually connected with us, whether they are in office, whether they are at home, they are working out of cafe or some kind of other setup, how do we energize them, number one. Number two, how do we have the right onboarding, capability, training, the whole people aspect of it, the employee experience of it, right? How do we make sure that they're kept energized? The next part is, what is the processes, policies, the whole fabric that we are building as an industry to make sure that the energy remains constant? There is an infinite possibility of compliance and not otherwise for whatever we're working on. And the third aspect of what is the technology and what is the infrastructure that we have to build or we have currently to support it. So I have the privilege to introduce my fellow panelist, Sudeep Roy, who is the Sales Director of India in EPOS. You just raise your hands, I'm sure everybody's met you outside. Munish, Bakshi, SVP Process Excellence and Business Transformation from Teleperformance. He's sitting right, no, you're no more beneath your picture. Venkatesh Devarajan, next to me is Senior Director of Delivery in Capgemi. Mahendra, Bindra, VP Customer Experience in Unity Small Finance Bank. Sachith, Rajagopal, India Head Technology Business for Exotel. And finally, Kamlesh, Kudav, who's on my right, AVP Operations, Training and Quality, Epicenter. So, if you ask me what has changed in the last 4 to 5 years that we've been dealing in this scenario, three things. One is we don't look at workplace as office anymore. In fact, some of us have given away the office spaces. So what I'm going to delve deeper on are the three things that I just spoke about. What are the capability that we are developing or we have in terms of people, processes and practices, and infrastructure and the technology that we are dealing with. So I'll move over from my right. Kamlesh, if I can just have your thoughts on that, and then we can take over to the next one.
Thanks, Arun. Thanks, Gain Skills Media, for having us over. Currently, at least in our organization, we're completely working from office. But during the 2 years during the pandemic, initially it was a complete mess to start with because none of us were ever working from home, and to set up everything and get it going. It took us a bit of time, but I think within a matter of a month, we were completely set up. And the challenges that lay ahead, it's only when we started we realized what sort of challenges we faced. The main thing that I've realized is working from home, lack of human touch, trust issues, and the isolation that you feel completely out of place because suddenly you're interacting with so many people. And next second, you're working from home, you're in an environment where people are intruding continuously because you've invaded your residence space and not the other way around. So it's a bit difficult to get things going. But I believe as we go ahead, we'll discuss this more in detail.
So what, according to you, would be a few of those techniques to have those engagements going?
One, if you set your specific requirements well in order right at the beginning is what your expectations are. You got to continuously keep checking up on what's happening because what happens when you're working from office is very easy to just walk around and say hi to someone and see what's happening. But when you're working from home, you tend to skip that a lot because you're so busy doing what you're doing. And then suddenly you realize you haven't spoken to someone. And then people feel that, you're isolating them, you're not talking to them, you're not giving them inputs of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And then a lot of trust issues seem to flare up. And then people just go, they feel because you're working from home, you can do whatever you want and people won't realize. That's the other thing we started doing is to track what people were doing. And in the initial days, it was crazy because you realize then suddenly someone's not at a space, they're not working, and the excuses that you started getting, electricity is gone, internet is not there, a whole lot of crazy stuff. And then you realize that someone else is living in the building, everything's working fine, but it's not working fine for this person.
Thank you so much. Munish, over to you. You run a large organization and that too, transformation, process excellence. What are your thoughts on this?
So, first of all, I'm kind of a little bit surprised looking at this topic. Why? Because this topic actually started off when the COVID came in, and now considering the fact we're 3 years down, this wound has already healed. Now we're probably looking at something where probably everyone has adapted to this kind of an environment. What I specifically feel, and every time I come on to these kind of events, most of the tools and technologies that have been positioned, for example, the people that I've met outside and the technologies that I've recently looked at, most of them are so adaptable to this kind of an environment. I don't feel that, myself, I don't feel that, that we are left out in terms of that, we're in that kind of environment where things cannot be mapped or, measured for that matter. When it comes to Teleperformance, or if I talk about my own self-entity or my organization that I drive, I have almost 95% of my team working in the remote environment from the inception itself. Yes, there are tools that are available to keep that, going, to keep that fluid. There are tools that are available to make sure that people are absolutely concerned, engaged in every element of it. So I don't think so there is kind of a challenge at this very moment, but I think I am much more confident as compared to what it was before, considering the fact that every organization has developed, tailored, altered their products according to this kind of environment now.
Thank you. And some thoughts on how do you think the people managers can bring this or foster this engagement with a better connect? How does that work?
So, again, I'm going to say that, you need to maneuver on the tools that we already have. There are tools which are specifically, if I just talk about from the agent's perspective, you need to figure it out. The gamification itself, which is specific to do with your industry, it's not specific to, I won't not like to limit that to the training itself. I want to see that how I can gamify the kind of solutions, how I can gamify the, the specifics of an every agent in a better way so that it feels engaged. Plus, there are tools that are available to make sure that even if the agents are on the calls or after the calls, there is periodic gaps in between and they're not feeling that they're absolutely, overboard for that matter. So I think I think it's an optimum utilization of the tools that we have. I think that's what's keeping us all intact right now.
Thank you, Munish. Sachith, over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, so I feel that when in 2020, like you rightly said, the pandemic happened and then everyone started working from home overnight. That became a new normal in a way for the next a couple of years. And people were like, they accepted that this is a new normal, this is the way we have to go about. But what happened is once the pandemic was over and, there was a reluctance from folks to come back from the comforts of homes to offices. There were a lot of HR policies which needed to change for them to bring them back. A lot of pressure also in certain cases to get employees back to office, and I think it's still out there. I mean, there are a lot of companies who are still working on a hybrid model because of the same reason. But if given a chance, many of them would want it to become a 100% office environment. And what has also changed is one thing which I feel is the difference is that when the shift happened, it was a shift across, like 100%. But when a work from office is again mandated, that's not a shift 100% across, right? So there will be your clients who might be working from office, while if you are working from home, then that may not resonate well. That's also certain, in some aspect, which some companies are, pointing on. For instance, when the work from home was happening, I remember seeing a LinkedIn video where an employee is having a conversation with the boss, the CEO, and then for some reason he had to stand up, and then they realized that he was actually wearing a boxer, and then there was the suit on top. And then all of a sudden, everyone else on the screen was numb. And then the CEO stands up and says, chill guys, even I'm like that, right? So that was a normal then. So people were okay with that. But now if you do that, I'm rest assured you're getting fired. You'll have to look for another job, right? So that's how things have changed. If it's a new normal, I think it has to be 100% new normal. But having said that, there could be cases where you might have to be lenient depending on industry to industry. But more importantly, it was a huge learning curve for us. It helped the entire world realize that, yes, work from home is also an option, just that you need the right tools, the right enablement, and the right environment to work. So if that happens, it is possible. So that's my take.
Great. And give us a couple of examples, if you may, from Exotel, right? That you deploy the tech and what are some of the perils that you have seen of the deployed tech that has worked against the engagement of the virtual force?
Okay, so Exotel was in the forefront of, say, the overnight shift of folks from office to home when the pandemic happened. I remember I alone had some 34 plus enterprise customers from, say, my patch, whatever I was handling that time, to move from, home to office, office to home kind of work environment shift. What we realized is that the tools and systems that we gave, okay, some of them, it was really, really new. So the adaptability was like you have to learn things overnight. It is very different from, say, what they used to have at office. It was a little bit more sophisticated systems in office which was available. While when it comes to home, you had to give lighter versions of that. So to adapt to those tools and then for a brief period of time, say, move away from your CRM systems and maybe work on Excel sheets for a while and then move back to CRMs when it became enabled. All these were issues which faced a lot of resistance. And then the folks who were working from home had to learn through this and then survive through that. So that is something that we saw as a huge challenge, but eventually people adopted.
Thank you so much. Venkatesh, if I can have your thoughts.
Sure. So I'll start off first with the COVID era. I mean, right? We all of us have gone through that. So you remember the very basic point, right? I mean, majority of the service industry had desktops, the so-called desktops, and we had to do this overnight shift. And there was a case when a few of my team members, we had to kind of shift the entire desktop to their residence, do the entire setup, and then is when they would have been productive. So it took a good 2 to 3 weeks for them to make productive. And by that time, again, a gradual comeback to office had started. So it was almost like we did some exercise, but then obviously it did not go futile. But at the same time, what it meant was whatever investment that we did in terms of transitioning the entire desktop had to be kind of resurfaced back to office and so on. So eventually, we also evolved, right? So as we moved along, obviously laptops became the primary thing, especially in the IT service industry where we were catering to client in a secure VPN network through the office connections. So those things happened. But while we did that, right? I mean, while the entire transitioning was happening, we realized that connecting to people on a day-in, day-out basis, as majority of our colleagues kind of mentioned, becomes a primary challenge because you want to connect to people and you want them to reciprocate. So that will happen only if, as managers, right, most of us are in lead positions. We are transparent, we are open to communication, and we kind of emphasize the point on how, what is the importance that we bring in. Few techniques that we kind of adopted in our setup is we had a Friday 1 hour called as no work time. So essentially what we do is we kind of connect on call, do not talk about work, talk about everything that's happening other than work. So that's one good thing which helps people to open up because especially in the remote setup, transparency is the key. And unless you are transparent and you kind of extract what is required, the outcome you can't expect how it will come up. So those are some small techniques that we did, and a few other things that kind of evolved as we went along is on especially the returning mothers kind of topic, because for them working from home is a kind of in today's world, majority of the organizations are open and are flexible as well. So that kind of helped these returning mothers and the diverse environment to kind of play a good part. So all in all, COVID has been a blessing in disguise, I would put it that way, and that's how I see things.
It's actually been an accelerator of a thought process that we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Venkatesh, for that. Mahendra, over to you for your thoughts.
I think it's been covered well by all fellow panelists. I think I completely agree. COVID has been a blessing in disguise. I think considering we are end of 2024, I think the world has learned to work remotely. I think our organization and my personal view is, I think going forward we will see different industries following different norms, right? The ones which are more design-centric, creative-centric will have 100% work from office. Service industries, which are more routine-based work or repetitive work will have more work from home. And then you will have more work, hybrid kind of a model. I think the world has realized that you no longer need to be 100% work from office. the entire work can be managed remotely, and we have done it for 2 years. The entire world has done it for 2 years. I think, but we have also realized during those 2 years that the amount of cohesive collaboration and other things cannot happen to the extent and depth which can happen in a work from office. Hence, you have a different organizations following different hybrid models. I think as we move forward, I think this space is only going to evolve further. I think technology will continue to play a role of enabler where more sophisticated tools, more technologies will be available for industries and for employees to collaborate more. I think the one of the example which he did mention, I think in organization when I worked during the COVID period, we had channels and rooms where you had one channel where people are playing Antakshari. There is a one food channel where people are preparing food. And it's, people are showcasing today this was the case. And there were different channels for people to get engaged apart from work, right? So there is a decent amount of collaboration that can happen in a remote setup. But as I think my personal view is, depending upon industry to industry, the level of work from office, work from home, or a hybrid model will be defined. And I think culture has to play a very big part of it, right? I think certain organizations are very centric that they want employees to come to office. And there are certain organizations which take the benefit of working from home. I do know few organizations who have, let go of a lot of real estate. So, for example, if you have 1,000 employees, all you need an office space of 250, where 1 week every team comes, once in 1 week in a month. So, you're able to manage 1,000 people with a 250, on capacity of only 250 people. So, that also benefit your bottom line. So, I think COVID has helped us learn a lot in terms of how work can happen remotely. I think going forward, it will be more industry specific, and organization culture will drive a lot more of these things. It's my input.
Thank you so much. Sudeep, over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Arun. So the way I look at it probably will be a little different. So for sales and marketing organizations like us, we have always, we were used to work from anywhere. But yes, when COVID happened, we were all confined to one room. And COVID was very bad. To everybody who has lost somebody up close and personal, they will remember, and probably we have forgotten that part of it. But yes, in some cases it has been a blessing in disguise. But the way I look at it, hybrid work is here to stay. It is not going anywhere. To agree to some of my fellow panelists here, yes, the level of hybrid work will differ between organizations to organizations, but it will be there to some extent. When COVID started, yes, there were a lot of challenges. Like Venkatesh said, they had to move desktops around, and a lot of companies were not prepared for it overnight. But device manufacturers like us also had to adapt to it. We had to come up with devices, tools, which are capable of doing more than what they used to. Now, I'll take an example of Microsoft, which is probably the biggest mammoth in terms of technology provider. And Teams, we all use Teams for our day-to-day conversations. Now, before COVID, all the products that go in and around Teams were Teams certified. Or, it's good to have it was good to have a Teams certified product. But after COVID, things changed. Microsoft redefined this, and they started a concept called Open Office. So what is an open office? Open office can be, to Arun's point, it can be a coffee shop, it can be a hotel or anything else, where the challenges are different, the background noise levels are different. At homes, you will have maybe a dog is barking or a child is crying, or it can be a noisy coffee shop and whatnot. So the technology providers like Microsoft adapted, and vendors like us who manufacture devices around these kind of technology providers also adapted. So there has been a shift in terms of the technology that we use, though may not be seen upfront, but there has been a lot of adaptation in that case. And I think this will continue for a significant amount of years. And I think to our colleagues' point here, I think yes, there is a lot of ambiguity at present, whether you need to be in office 5 days or 3 days. we were all in a comfort zone where we work 5 days at home, and then when we have to go to office, we have to travel a couple of hours every day in traffic. Now there we also lose productivity while doing so. So is that something that we need? Is that something what we want? Is something that the organization needs to decide? But at the end of the day, I think this is the new way of working.
I think one of the interesting points that I wanted to ask you is, when you're working virtually, and when I say virtual, it could be anywhere. And you guys are in a very interesting equipment manufacturing business. What are some of the examples or the problem statements that you have seen from the customers?
Great question. So in an office, to start with, you have great air conditioning, you have great bandwidth, assuming. When you move home, somebody said, there can be a power cut. Now, these are certain things that probably as a manufacturer or probably as a company, you cannot actually do much, and apart from putting in a UPS or equipping that person with right kind of backup. But there are certain other challenges that come into picture. For example, if you're working from home and if your wife is preparing breakfast, there can be a pressure cooker whistle coming out all of a sudden that you don't want your customer on the other end to hear. And this is where device manufacturers like us come in, and we have adapted or we have put in things in the devices that help you overcome these kind of situations. So if you have seen the presentation earlier where I ran a small clip, whether somebody is running a vacuum cleaner behind you or your kid is crying or a dog is barking, the products that you use need to be able to filter out these kind of noises, and your customer at the other end should not have the burden of listening to your dog barking or your mixer grinder behind.
Thank you so much. Munish, over to you. One example that you would have come across, and you manage a large scale, that would have taken care of, possibly with the right technology or equipment, things would have been better, but it kind of blew the customer's mind off. Some examples of that?
Yes, I can talk about it. One of them is it's not limited to BFSI, but one of the things that we talk about is the data security. While I think, EPOS actually provides a lot of supplementary tools, as I was talking before. But at the end of the day, when you're actually interacting with a customer, something which is important at the back of when you're operating out of home is the data security, considering the fact that you are interacting with a customer with a lot of data which is not even masked when you're asking from the customer. So I think that is something which is very, very important. However, how we have dealt with it is, if I can talk about not naming the tools, even if there is a quality assurance team who's probably listening to the calls for that matter, we have actually masked those informations with the help of a certain tools. However, when we are retrieving those information, it gives us the right information of that as well. So those are the specific things that we've operated. But yes, data security has played a very pivotal role, other than the noises that you've been talking about largely for us.
The background noise.
Yes.
There's a lot of, I'm sure, interesting examples that the team can bring in. Anybody wants to bring up an example of a background noise being a deterrent in any kind of a conversation? Anyone from the audience?
In fact, I'm looking for a day when we would stop saying, can you please unmute yourself and speak? So we'll probably wait for that day. But that's one area which I feel is something that things have to evolve. I mean, we saw a lot of things on Gen AI and AI today. So that's probably one classic example where majority of us would have faced this, right? I mean, I see you go on mute, can you unmute and then speak? So,
but that too also, it's also limited till the time you're switching on your camera. If you're not switching on a camera, you don't even know who's talking for that matter.
Let me ask this.
So guys, if I can pitch, sorry Arun, to cut you short. So Venkatesh, I think that day is here. Now, like I said, we have evolved, the devices have evolved. So some of our latest products, what it does is, it gives you a visual cue. So if you have the boom arm in front of you, you will see a red LED on the boom arm that tells you whether you are on mute or not. So yeah, by looking at the LED that you need to actually go ahead and unmute yourself before you start speaking. So yeah.
Can I just put a context to that? Sure. The problem is not whether there is a red LED or not. The problem is how many tasks that somebody is doing. And I'll give you a practical example. One of these, without naming the organization. So there was this guy who was taking the call, forgot to switch off the camera, right? And we were all on a conference call. We were trying to figure out what should be the agenda for a management meet. And while we were doing that, and this is in Philippines, by the way, the guy went on to fold the clothes, right? While we were asking the person to switch off the video, obviously did not hear because he forgot that the headset that he was wearing is actually on the table. And only somebody had to call him on his physical phone, mobile phone, to let him know that he is without the headset and the camera is on, then we can see him doing that. So that's one example that I can tell you. Now the problem in the space that we are operating, and most of us represent that BPO or BPM space, is what is the expectation that we have from the people, right? Productivity is the biggest, while it's a boon, it's a peril if you may think about that. Now look at it this way, the agent that we hire, I mean that's the population which makes us earn what we earn today or makes us engage with what we are doing today are the frontline population, the ambassadors, the agents that we talk about, right? Agnostic of the industry that we support. The problem is that we don't even look at, are they really interested in doing a particular shift, right? Are they fit for purpose for a particular type of a customer or a call or an interaction after 2, 3, 4 or 5 weeks of training? Are we doing enough of hand-holding? So what happens is that once the person is ready, in our perspective, you know, by the book, if the person is ready and we push them onto the calls, but they are not ready, number one. Number two, when it comes to virtual world, we haven't mapped out the virtual world in terms of how much time are they spending on the call or the job vis-a-vis doing something else. And the third is the socio-economic conditions that we are bringing people from, right? We are bringing people from about 70% of the industry, if you look at any of the reports, comes from a lower middle class background globally. In that, if you are saying that people will work for 8 hours consistently without any kind of a deterioration, that's a misnomer that we need to tell ourselves how do we get out of. I think what's important is to ensure that we understand who we're working with. We understand what are we enabling them with. Like I said, what are the policies and practices? What are the capabilities that we are bringing on and we are getting them ready for? And what are the technologies and the infrastructure that we are giving them? These are the three things that I would say. I have an interesting question for Mahendra. You represent a bank, right? What percentage of people really work in a virtual ground? Are they all brick and mortar or some of them are virtual?
No. All work.
All brick and mortar,
but,
right? So,
but as a organization policy, we do allow people working from home if circumstances are where the person cannot come to office. Somebody met with an accident or somebody has an ailing mother or some other challenges. So that flexibility exists, but by design it's a work from office model.
got it. All right. Do you want to bring in any kind of a tech changes that are going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months' time? Or what are the trends that you're seeing?
Absolutely. So I would also like to add to what Munish was telling earlier. So there is definitely IT security, but also one very important point which came up especially when, say, the work from home norm started was compliance, right? So the compliance when you work from office is different from the compliance you have to maintain when you work from home. So companies also had to ensure that these compliances are in place. In fact, the government also acted very quickly on that. They came up with compliance norms for work from home workers very quickly in like, say, 2 to 3 weeks of, say, the pandemic started. So that way it was pretty quick. But today what we are seeing is that compliance, while it was a paper which was published to ensure that it happens smoothly in the next 1 year, that has continued. And today, the trend is also going towards in a direction where work from home can still be a very compliant solution. And for that, how can digital tools be equipped, or how that can be done? So just to give you a small example, while agents work from home today, many of them are mandated to use, say, a VPN, okay, to get the calls connected and stuff like that. In fact, but today there are laws which has come in thanks to, say, the work from home which happened during the pandemic, you can actually take calls on public internet, even without a VPN. Okay, you just need to have the right players from whom you have to adopt these tools and ensure that everything is compliant. So that's one norm that we are seeing, that whoever is working from home, you can still utilize whatever is available with you, which is the public internet, using which you can take calls or manage your stuff. So that is one. Second is how AI has now revolutionized. So while it was not completely available when it was a norm from 2020 to 2022, that time frame, today it is possible for the monitoring has become much more easier. While you were in a position to say, do the Q&A for only 10, 15, maximum 20% of your complete conversations at that time. Today, AI can help you do 100% of that using the tools which are available in the market. So it will give you the productivity of each and every agent who is working from home as well, and measure it against other agents, and then you can take your training and R&D and all those things which is required. So those kind of tools are now available in the market. And then, of course, like Sudeep said, we have a lot of equipments also which has come in, which is also AI enabled. In fact, I'm hoping that going forward, with digital voice and digital kind of conversations becoming even more and more adopted, like, say, whether chat is already there, but pretty soon there is going to be IP calling, which is going to become the norm. It's only a matter of time because 5G is getting revolutionized. Japan has already started testing 6G, as I hear it. So soon the world will move towards IP calls also. So now the tools are also getting equipped so that everywhere the digitization is possible, even from work from home. So that's another thing which is also coming.
Thank you so much. Anything that you want to sum up with? Okay, great. What I will sum it up with are 2 or 3 things. So one is, when we talk about Verve, or the word energizing the engagement, I think what we need to understand is it needs a lot of integrated, humanized, and real effort. So humanize those efforts is what I would say. You heard the panel speak about how technology, policies, processes, and people practices are bringing them together. So humanize it, number 1. Number 2, be real, be authentic. And number 3, make sure that you're exploring what's available to have currently the 5 generations who are under the same roof, who are working and have a different ways of engagement. With that, thank you so much for being an absolutely great audience who did not ask any questions. So thank you so much for that. Love you for that. So, and we are finishing before time. 3 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Thank you so much, sir. Over to you.
Leading the panel so well, and thank you to all our panelists. I would like to call upon stage Mr. Shubham Bhaumik, JP Morgan Chase, ex-Capgemini, to do the honors.